A police report has brought to light more disturbing details of the kidnapping of 3 Ohio women imprisoned in a squalid house for about a decade. Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight have given police information on their captivity, pregnancies, and abuse. Joining me to discuss this is trial attorney Richard Roth. Richard, can you tell us some of the details that we're reading about in these police reports?
Absolutely. Amanda Berry is the woman who actually got out. She thought, in fact, that she was being tested by Mr. Castro, but she realized he left the door unopened or unlocked, and she was able to essentially escape and get the police and get the 3 of them out. And what's happening now is all 3 of them are giving statements. We have Amanda Berry, we have Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, and it's pretty grueling stuff what we're hearing. What we're hearing is that he actually impregnated them. He actually impregnated one of them 5 times, and what he would do, according to these statements, is he would impregnate them and then force them to miscarriage by starving them and beating them. So the prosecutor here, who was on as early as this morning, essentially is saying, listen, if he actually tried to kill these fetuses and was successful, he may want to actually seek a murder charge, even though they weren't born children. And so the prosecutor in Cleveland is being very aggressive here, as he should be.
And AG Mike DeWine actually will be joining us at 2 o'clock today to talk about the prosecution.
Yeah, as he should be. And this is gruesome, gruesome stuff. These women were in captivity for 9 to 10 or 11 years, all starting in 2002. One of them, we learned he had a baby. He had a baby with, and in fact, he gave birth. The woman gave birth right in the house. So what we're learning now, once this unfolds, there's so many pieces that the police are learning. They're taking statements. They're talking to neighbors. They're talking at length to these 3 women. One of them was still in the hospital. And they're assembling a lot of data, which is going to really strengthen and embolden the prosecutor. It's a pretty gruesome story.
Yeah, and I have on my computer also pictures of the 3 men, the Castro brothers, who stand accused of kidnapping and raping the 3 women. It seems to be there's plenty of evidence here. It's mounted up that this prosecution will very likely be successful.
Absolutely. We also have, which we're learning about in bits and pieces as well, an admission by a Mr. Castro. Apparently he wrote in 2004, this is 9 years ago, where he admitted that this was a problem he had. So you have the admission, you have the statements by these 3 women. It's not much different than the Jerry Sandusky case, which happened about a year ago, maybe a little more, where you have all these victims that come out. In this case, we have 3 women who were literally missing for 10 years. So he will be convicted, and they are trying to get the death penalty against him.
Well, one other thing here, which is pretty compelling, is that there has been a suicide note by Ariel Castro, one of the men who stands accused. I have the story pulled up here on my computer, where he talks about, and he confesses to the Cleveland kidnapping. So there's just evidence after evidence after evidence here, and the more we're learning, it just seems so awful what was happening in that house for a decade.
It's horrific. What he did, he would chain them to in the basement when he left. Remember, he was working until November, I think it was, of last year. He was working as a bus driver. So if you can imagine, let's assume he's working 4, 5, 6 hours a day. He would chain them up, go to work, and come back and then unchain them. Apparently, he let them live in the 2nd floor of the house. But at all times, he was watching them, and they were nervous. At times, he actually tested them. And it is all coming out. It's all unraveling.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can't imagine taking place in this day and age.
And one thing that I also find quite interesting here is that the prosecutor might put forward death penalty suggestion, death penalty recommendation, if it comes to sentencing. And it's for the forced miscarriages for the women here. And that, to me, how often is the death penalty invoked for forced miscarriages, for forced abortions, for issues like that? That seems to skirt awfully close to more nebulous territory.
Oh, there's no question about it. I've never heard of it in my career being asserted against a forced miscarriage. And that's really because I can't recall ever there being a situation where a man would impregnate a woman and then starve and beat her to force a miscarriage. I mean, this is really beyond the bizarre. This is something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
So I don't ever remember a death penalty being asserted for a forced miscarriage. I don't remember there ever being a forced miscarriage.
Yeah.
So it's stuff that you just couldn't even imagine. It sounds like it's a fiction novel.
Yeah, we have a comment from Patricia013 saying he needs the death penalty, impregnated them, beat them till they miscarried. This does seem like it might end up being the perfect storm of death penalty, abortion, class politics, all of these things as the prosecution moves forward. No one's doubting, I imagine, that they're guilty. What people, I think, will start fighting over is the roles of all of those elements when it comes time to figure out what to do with these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes a political issue. Is a fetus, there's a whole abortion issue. Is a fetus a living being? I mean, there's a lot of people who are very have very strong emotions on that issue. Can you actually cause the death of a fetus? Is that something you can assert the death penalty on?
Yeah.
We're really charting on we're going through a lot of uncharted territory, which have serious, not only criminal but political implications as well.
Right, and with prosecutors and DAs being elected officials, this is always a consideration in what they choose to move forward with.
Yeah, they're going to want to get as much as they can.
Yeah.
They want to, they have several rapes. They have a few kidnappings, including the child that was born from one of the women who's now 6 years old, if you can imagine. That's another kidnapping by not letting the kid go out of the house. So they want to continue to increase the charges against Castro, and they want this guy at a minimum to stay in jail the rest of his life, and maybe even face a death penalty.
Well, let's go to Ohio, to south of our border. Malcolm Shabazz, the grandson of civil rights icon Malcolm X, has been killed in Mexico, according to the Amsterdam News. He was 28. Reports are still coming through about the cause of his death. Talking Points memo reported that Shabazz died of injuries sustained during a robbery, while family friend Juan Ruiz called it murder. Joining us now to discuss is Black Voices editor here at HuffPost, Danielle Cadet. Danielle, what do we know?
Honestly, we really don't know much. Right now, there are conflicting reports. The U.S. Embassy has not released an official statement. There has been information from a family friend, actually Terry Williams, on her Twitter account, did confirm Malcolm's death. And she's a pretty reliable source. She was actually the individual who got him out of jail for the incident that he's most well known for, which was when he was 12 years old, when he set fire to his grandmother's house, which eventually she sustained injuries that eventually led to her death. So right now, there are still the details are very murky. We know that he was apparently robbed. I've seen some reports of him being beaten. I've seen reports of him being thrown out of a window. So they're really, really conflicting reports right now, and it's going to be interesting, as we wait for the family to release a statement and as we wait for the U.S. Embassy to release an official statement.
And it sounds like this is the last tragic event in what has been a pretty troubled life.
Absolutely. Malcolm Shabazz was really in and out of jail, really had a lot of run-ins with the law. Again, going back to, the most notable situation when he, going back to, being a preteen and being 12 years old. He's been in and out of jail with, robbery and assault. And he was, when he got out of jail in 2002, he was again arrested for punching a hole through a store window. So he really has had a bit of a troubled life. And he, was coming out and saying that he was working with the youth, and that he seemed to really appeared to be kind of changing his lifestyle. But he really, unfortunately, is well known for having a bit of a troubled life, in stark contrast to his grandfather, Malcolm X.
Right. And Richard, because this happened in Mexico, can the U.S. authorities investigate?
They certainly can investigate. Mexico wants to learn everything, so I believe Mexico will most likely allow the U.S. authorities to help them, at a minimum help them to investigate. But, it's as she just said, he had an unfortunate life. He's been in jail a few times, not only the death of his grandmother in the fire, 2002, the attempted robbery, he was in jail for 3.5 years, the assault in 2006. So it's unfortunate that the life that this kid, now man, leads, and I believe that the Mexicans are going to welcome the U.S. to help them figure out what exactly happened here. We don't know if it was a standby robbery or if there was something involving illicit activity, which he may very well have been involved in. We will know everything about this investigation as well.
Well, Danielle, Richard, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Really good to talk to both of you.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for having me.
much.